All right, for this assignment, we're going to try to recreate some of the animations that you saw created by a gapminder group led by Dr. Hans Rosling. And to do that, we're going to start with a data set that comes with Tableau. Now, you can download the full one that was seen in the YouTube video of over 200 years, but we're going to start with a smaller set of the years 2000 to 2012. So go ahead and click on this world indicators in Tableau, and we're going to open up this and get started. So to begin, let's go to our data source and get familiar with the data set. So as you can see, there's only really one connection, one table. This is a very flat document. There aren't any relationships that we need. And if we look down here, we can see that everything from the birth rate, CO2 emissions, the country name, uh, days of business, all of this is in here, including their GDP, infant mortality rate. So we can kind of scroll over and see what else is available. Uh, Tourism, the region, the population total, and the year. So we have enough here that we can work with this, and we'll be able to create some visuals to animate. Now notice that each observation is a row and each column is a different variable. So looking across the row, I can see all the information for Algeria for that particular year. All right, so let's go to our first sheet and start making something. So to begin, I'm going to start by showing GDP overall, and let's disaggregate this by country. So we use the columns to show that the GDP, and this is the total over the 12 years. And then each of these countries is represented by a bar. Now we're going to go ahead and flip this, and we can order it. So now we see that United States is there, but actually this is way more than the GDP of the United States just because it added it up over the 12 years. So if we wanted to split this up by year, what we can do is go over here and try to do tooltips. And it has all the years. So let's change this to dimension so that we look at individual years. So there we go. Now, as we scroll down, we can see the years and the GDP for each year. So there's actually a points within those bars that we didn't see before. So this is really useful, and we can use this to look at things like life expectancy. Now, one thing about GDP, though, is that this is not kind of corrected for by the population. So let's go ahead and write a formula here. We'll do our first formula, and we can do bracket GDP, and it's going to pull up that variable, and it allows us to make a calculation. So let's take GDP and divide it by the total population. So I'm going to do the division sign, bracket, population total, then close my bracket, and now I have a calculation. I can see how much the GDP was total. And as you can see, it changes significantly what happens among these countries, and we can see that the trend for the most GDP with the United States is now not the highest GDP per capita. So let's try to get rid of this GDP. We want something a little more useful for our purposes, and we can also go down the line like that. All right. Let's look at this compared to life expectancy, though. So we have two values for life expectancy, one for women, one for men. And rather than doing the sum, we'll switch this to a dimension, and we'll also do that for the GDP per capita. And actually, I want to switch these axes. I think I meant to put the life expectancy on the y-axis. So we have this beautiful graph. Already we can see that the life expectancy ranges from 37 years old all the way to 88 for men, and 39 is the lowest life expectancy for women, and it looks like the highest might be 87. So we have some basic information here, but it's really hard to tell which countries these belong to. And we can do stuff like we can drag country over to tooltip, so in addition to seeing the year, we can see where it is. But this is going to take way too long to go through if we want to see some general trends. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually add some color to this. We're going to drag region over to color. And now we can at least kind of group them based upon their geography. And as you can see, there's still this really long tail. It looks like there's very few countries over here on this side. Most of them are over here. So let's try this again. We're going to fix this by changing the axes. So the axis can be edited. We can do automatic. I'm going to turn this into a logarithmic scale so it spreads out the data a little more. And that way the people who have low GDP, the countries that have low GDP per capita are going to be kind of pulled out a little more so we can see their differences. And in fact, I'm going to change the title of this axis to GDP per capita. Good. So we'll go ahead and close that. And now we can see the range quite a bit better. It's still kind of hard to tell which are the points. And since we have all the years, there's really no dynamic aspect to this. So let's go ahead and add a population total as a way to kind of size things up. Okay, so now we can see there's some bigger dots. So it looks like this is China. This looks like India. And now we can see there's different time points for each of those. I'm going to change this one to a dimension too, so it'll update as we go through time. As countries get bigger, their populations will grow. So this is looking really good. And in fact, I want to increase the size a little bit so it's a little more dramatic. When I see a big country, it's going to be really big. And that'll help me kind of track things once I animate them. Now, the next thing I want to do is bring in the year. Now, we could filter to a particular year if we wanted to, like this. Maybe we just want to see the year 2000. And that would give us the information for that. But if we want to show all the years, we actually need to get rid of this filter. And we're going to create a page. So Pages is a useful tool for kind of showing all of the years. And notice that now it gave me the same graph of 2000, but I have this new widget over here. And this gizmo, when I press play, will go through each year for each country. Wow, look at that. So even within the short time span, you could see the points moving up and to the right. So as their GDP increases, their life expectancy is going up too. And I can make this faster too by hitting this triple stacked button. So this is great. In addition, maybe I want to add some labels. So let's add the country names to labels. And this will help us kind of see things as they go. Very nice. Now, if you want to add a little extra, you could also do some trails and marks if you wanted to. But I think these might be a little too distracting for our graphs. Yeah, so I'm going to get rid of that. I don't want to show that right now. Okay, great. So we have our graph. It updates. We can see the trends. So let's go ahead and change the name of this. We're going to call this, I'm going to delete this, and we're going to call this GDP per capita and life expectancy for men and women around the globe. Okay, and so now we've updated the visual and we have this nice kind of graph and we can animate it. So congratulations, you made a data visualization that matches what Hans Rosling did. I just realized this should be GDP, not GPD. Great, and so now we have this intuitive graphic. It looks really good. So now what we want to do is save it. And when you save it, you're going to want to find a folder that's appropriate for your assignment. And we're going to call this gapminder assignment. And you could save as a workbook. You could also save as the TWBX, which will store the data with the visual, whereas the workbook will only show the visuals connections.